Okay, it's 4 o'clock and we are streaming live. You can go whenever you're ready to go. We've got people coming in now.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Welcome everyone this beautiful September day. Our first order of business is an appointment of our new councillor, Philip Smith. And Kathy will do the oath of office.
Correct. So I'll have Philip, you can go ahead and read.
Okay. I, Philip Smith, have been appointed to the office of Councillor District 2 in the municipality of Central Frontenac, do solemnly promise and declare that 1, I will truthfully, faithfully, and impartially exercise this office to the best of my knowledge and ability. 2, I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward or promise thereof for the exercise of this office in a biased, corrupt, or in any other improper manner. 3, I will disclose any pecuniary interest, direct or indirect, in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. 4, I will faithfully and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. And I make this solemn promise and declaration conscientiously believing it to be true and knowing that it is of the same force and effect as if made under oath.
Thank you, Philip. So now we just have to sign. So it's declared before me, Kathy McMunn, CAO Clerk at the Village of Sharbert Lake in the Township of Central Frontenac, this 28th day of September 2021, that Philip Smith is now our councillor for District 2, District 2 to carry out until elections in next October in 2022.
Okay.
That's it,
And
Madam Mayor.
I have a motion. I have a motion moved by Bill and seconded by Tom that bylaw 2021-54, being a bylaw to appoint Philip Smith as councillor for Ward 2, be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed this 28th day of September 2021. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion's carried.
Welcome to the team, Philip.
Yes, welcome, Philip.
Welcome back, Philip.
Yes. Okay, our next motion is approval of the agenda. Moved by Victor and seconded by Nikki that the agenda of the regular council meeting held September the 28th, 2021 be approved as, are there any amendments, Kathy?
I was just double checking. I think that we do have one other item under closed session. It's personal matters about identifiable person, as well as the one listed in your package. But I believe that is all I have for additions.
Okay, so to accept the agenda as amended. Discussion,
Correct.
All those in favor? Did you have a discussion, Bill, or you're voting?
No, I thought you were calling the question. Thank you, madam.
All right, all those in favor again, let me just see your hands. Okay, motion's carried. All right. Is there any disclosure pecuniary interest in general nature thereof of any item on tonight's agenda by any member of council? Okay. Nikki, you have none with the presentation?
No, I checked with Kathy. I'm not asking for money or anything. I'm only giving an information presentation.
Okay.
Yeah, she's fine.
Okay, good to check. All right, so we will note that in the minutes. I now have a motion moved by Sherry and seconded by Brent that the minutes of the regular council meeting held September the 14th, 2021 be approved as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Carried. Okay. Next is mayor's remarks, and I do have a few today. This Thursday is Truth and Reconciliation Day, and those of us who can wear orange would be great if we could wear orange. Kathy has been able to get hats for the township
there.
office staff. Oh, there we
That's
go.
That's what they look like. It says Sharbet Abajawan First Nation. So all the staff will be wearing these on Thursday.
Okay. We also got a flag that we're going to
Yes.
be putting outside of the building so that we can all remember those children that have been missing and finally found. Also, we received a confirmation from the county that our official plan has been approved. So it is official. We do have a new official plan now. It was a lot of work, but we finally got there. We also received a letter from the military thanking us for our participation in the training for their officers, which staff and myself spent a morning with some officers talking about our area and things that we need to know for emergency services. It was very informative for them and for us. The other announcement is our very own Michael McGovern has been elected to the Municipal Finance Officers Association. Michael was on the association before, so this is a re-election for him. So congratulations, Michael.
Thank you. Yeah, they asked me to sit on the board this past year, which was an honor to be asked, and then to be voted on was pretty cool. So
Excellent. There's always something to be learned with those things, to be on those boards and associations. Good for you. Okay, I believe that's it for me. Deputy Mayor, do you have anything to add? Does anyone else have anything to add? Okay, if not, we'll move on. Deferred items, there are none. I don't think, right, Kathy?
No, there's none.
All right. So we are at Treasury. Accounts payable report is first up. Have a motion moved by Cindy and seconded by Bill that council approve the check distribution reports totaling $1,563,253.16 as prepared by the treasurer. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion's carried. Apportionment report. Moved by Tom and seconded by Victor that council approve the following apportionments of assessment as recommended by impact for 2021 as applicable for the following roll numbers. And there are a number of those. Obviously cleanup time, Michael, I guess, eh?
well, impact of all the hard work Andy's doing and some of it cleanup, yes, but I imagine there'll be a lot of these on the reports over the next couple of years.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Moved by Philip and seconded by Sherry that council for the Township of Central Frontenac approve the following reduction of assessment pursuant to the Municipal Act. Roll number 1039-080-030-09600, Geronimus Anthony John and Georgina Linda for the period of June 10 to December 31st, 2021, as reported by impact reason raised by fire, demolition, or otherwise, 357-1DI. Roll number 1039-010-010-04810, C. Howard and Winifred Marion for the period of January 1st, 2016 to December 31st, 2020, as reported by impact reason, gross or manifest clerical factual error, 357-1F, double assessed roll made in error. It took a long time to catch it, I guess. And further, that council approve an adjustment of taxes to be calculated by the tax department for the related periods. Discussion. All those in favor? Motion's carried.
If I may, Madam Mayor, just to point out that roll number should have been 04801. So I apologize for that extra zero there to council.
Okay, I just put a line through it.
Thank you.
All right. Now we have signing authority change. Moved by Brent and seconded by Cindy, that Council of the Township of Central Frontenac hereby approves the removal of Hannah Barker and authorizes the following individuals: J. Michael McGovern, Aaron Babcock, Stephanie Hammond, Jody League, Donna Longmire, and Heather Robinson to sign for access to and control of the contents of such safe deposit box, and that this approval shall apply not only to the said safety deposit box, but to any other safe deposit box that may be leased by the Township of Central Frontenac. And further, that this resolution be forwarded to the Royal Bank and remain in force until such time it's no longer required. And further, that J. Michael McGovern, Aaron Babcock, Stephanie Hammond, Jody League, Donna Longmire, or Heather Robinson be granted signing authority for any items for which Canada Post requires a signature. Discussion? This just gets everybody able to do what needs to be done. All those in favor? Carried.
Madam Mayor, may I make one more comment to council?
Sure.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we are still moving forward with advertising for a tax sale starting next week. Obviously, I couldn't bring a report forward to the public until all the properties are final, but just to count for council's information, we are moving forward for a sale that would happen on November 4th. Just to let everybody, give everyone a heads up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments from council? Okay, seeing none. We are now to Fire and Emergency Services. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
You too, Michael.
You too. Have a motion moved by Nikki and seconded by Tom that council receive for information the CFFR activity report dated September the 28th, 2021. Discussion? Tom, go ahead, and then Nikki, and then Bill.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. Jamie, I noticed on the reports, you had a total for all of the fire halls of 5 of the wildfires. And then I noticed under each hall, you had station 1, for example, was 3, station 2 was 5 and 3. So I assume that some of the other halls were responding to the same fire. Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Dewey. That's correct, Tom. Tried a couple of different ways now. That we tried a new way to try and show the total calls and then station calls. So you will see when you get into the station calls, if you go from station 1 to station 4, the station calls might be more than what the all calls are. That's because there's multiple stations responding to the same call.
That's what I thought. Thank you very much.
Okay, Nikki, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. Chief, this doesn't relate to your report, but my question is, have we put in place a vaccination policy for the township?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Gowdy. Kathy and myself are working on a vaccination policy for the municipality. It has gone to our HR committee, and Kathy and I will be working on some changes, but it will be rolling out shortly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Bill, you're next.
I think part of my question was answered through you, Madam Mayor, to Jamie. On station 4, the number of total incidents, when you add the numbers up, there's considerable difference than what's on the sheet. Is that because other stations are responding in that number also?
That is correct.
Okay, good enough.
Any other questions or comments from anyone? Okay, all those in favor of the motion? Carried. Surplus equipment. Moved by Victor and seconded by Bill. Whereas tender fire 2021-01 was released on June 22nd with no bids received and re-released on July the 14th, 2021 and closed on August the 30th, 2021 for the sale of surplus fire equipment as described in the document. And whereas council authorized the sale of the equipment in 2019 once the retrofits had been completed. And whereas 3 separate bids were received on each of the 3 units. And whereas the acting manager of emergency services / fire chief has reviewed the bids and is recommending that we accept the highest bids as follows. A, Peter Netto, $1,400 plus HST for the 1991 GMC Top Kick water tanker, 1,500 gallon VPN number 1GD and all that number. B, Jordan Saunders, $850 plus HST for the 1994 Ford 5-ton cargo truck. And the VIN number is there as well. And C, Jordan Saunders, $700 plus HST for the 2004 Chev Rescue Van with the VIN number. Now, therefore, be it resolved that council accept the recommendation of the acting manager of emergency services fire chief and award the above individuals as successful bidders on the 3 vehicles as outlined in the tender. And further, that council authorize the acting manager of emergency services fire chief to complete the sale of the vehicles to the successful bidders. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Carried. There we go, Jamie. You can tell the folks they now have vehicles.
Thank you. Just a little note, Madam Mayor, and just we put it out on our Facebook page this morning. Central Frontenac Fire and Rescue will be conducting their water shuttle certification testing this evening. We are starting at 19:30 hours. The testing center is at the Thousand Islands Concrete Plant on Highway 7, and we'll be hauling water from 2 sites, one at Big Clear Lake and one at Kennebec Lake. And we'll be running for approximately 2 hours while we do our certification testing. So, and it will be in an emergency mode. So you will be seeing fire trucks running up and down the road with their lights on. And so just do a little public service announcement. So have a good evening.
Okay.
Thank you, Jamie.
Good luck with your transfer of water.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, stay safe. All right, now we're moving on to administration. And this is sale of land Thompson, moved by Sherry and seconded by Bill. Whereas an expression of interest has been received to purchase the east half of Lot 5, Concession 3 Oso, whereas this is owned by the municipality but has not been declared surplus. Whereas the expression of interest has been circulated among staff and stakeholders for comment. Whereas there is an opportunity for this proposed sale to rectify title to a section of the Crow Lake Road, which is a trespass road crossing through the applicant's property. Now, therefore, be it resolved that council agree in principle to declare the property surplus and direct staff to pursue a sale with the applicants pursuant to option 2 outlined in this report. And further, that a bylaw be brought back to council to declare the property surplus and approve the finalized agreement of purchase and sale. Any discussion? Cindy can answer questions on this one. Okay,
I would
I see
support
no
option 2. I support option 2.
option 2. Is that what everyone's saying? Okay, I see nods. All right, so all those in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. Okay, road closure and sale Emery. Moved by Nikki and seconded by Brent, that council approve in principle the recommendation of the CAO clerk to close that part of unopened road allowances between concession 8 and 9, Hinchinbrook, adjacent to lot 19, as described on the map attached, as applied for by the owners of 1003 Fourth Lake Road, and that we proceed to a public meeting to close the said road allowance before passing said bylaw. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Very quiet lot tonight.
So far.
Well, staff just did a good job.
That's what it is. All right, this is a road closure and sale request for Lake. Moved by Philip, seconded by Victor, that council approve in principle the recommendation of the CAO clerk to close that part of the subdivision road, Warrington Lane, described on the map attached as applied for by the owners of 1270 Warrington Lane, and that we proceed to a public meeting to close the said road allowance before passing said bylaw. So very similar to the other one. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Okay, road closure and sale request, DeClute and Cook. Moved by Philip and seconded by Bill, that council approve in principle the recommendation of the CAO clerk to close that part of an unopened road allowance between Olden/Oso south of Burning Point Road and the shore of Charbot Lake as described on the map attached as applied for by the owners of Island H in Charbot Lake, and that we proceed to a public meeting to close the said road allowance before passing said bylaw. Any discussion on this one? Bill?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Maybe just a question to the Madam Mayor. In this particular situation, is that the one where we're dealing with the issues around Burning Point Road, where the folks are asking us to take over additional land in there? Am I reading this wrong, or is that in a different location?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I can address that question to Councillor McDonald. It is portion of the road well before we get into that area. The portion that we're talking about with the landowners to assume is at the southerly portion of Burning Point Road, where it turns into Arthur Lane and Buell Lane. This section is quite a piece before that. It's just past the intersection of Timber Lane, I believe.
Yes, I drew that conclusion, but when I saw the name of the person who was objecting to it, they must own land over to where we're actually dealing with the other road then, am I correct?
Correct, yeah. He
Okay.
owns quite a bit of acreage in there, yeah.
All right, okay, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. All right, Victor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A couple of questions. The people who are proposing the road closure, what is their intent? Are they looking to put in a dock or a boat launch? And I'll wait for the answer for that and then I'll continue.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Heath, I think that will depend on the restrictions from the Conservation Authority. I think definitely they want a dock. They realize that it will probably be pedestrian access to the dock and a parking area up on the higher ground. I don't believe they're intending to put a boat launch area in. I don't think the shoreline is conducive to that, but it will depend on what the Conservation Authority will allow in terms of the shoreline, any shoreline alteration. They're aware that they need to have approval through the Conservation Authority.
Okay, thank you. And then a further comment. In this situation, we have an abutting landowner who is opposed to this. So this is not the appropriate venue for hearing both sides of the argument. So I am going to be supporting the motion to go to a public meeting where we can hear both sides. But I would also like to perhaps put forward a possible solution. Instead of closing up and selling, could we make a license agreement so that we retain ownership? And that way we're not going against our typical procedure of not selling off waterfront concession or road allowances. And that would also leave us free to possibly put in the dry hydrant in the future, such as like that Jamie suggested.
Through you, Madam Mayor, if I can respond to Councillor Heath, I think that is definitely a possibility, although I think if we go that route, I know the planners were suggesting an easement. I think I would prefer an easement over a license because with the license, we can't restrict public access. It would, unless we actually close the road allowance, and typically with license agreements, we don't close the road allowance, so it's still open to the public. So if these property owners put in a driveway, it gives people more access, or, make it really easy to get to the shoreline. It could actually increase the number of the public accessing the shoreline, which I'm not sure is what we want. Maybe it is, but just something to consider. I think either one of those options could work with some legal advice.
Okay, Victor, go ahead.
May I have a follow? Thank you, Madam Mayor. So just a follow-up question. The idea of the easement, would that be something that we could control in the future, or would that go on title and be a permanent thing? Because my concern is closing off and selling. That's a done deal, and then we lose that the possibility of any access in the future.
Through you, Madam Mayor, we can structure that however we want. If we want to make it a temporary easement, that is something we can do. Easements tend to get registered on title. Typically, they run with the land and are in perpetuity, but we would be able to control that and dictate the term. So if we wanted to have it a shorter period of time, then that's something that we can decide to do and put those conditions on the easement.
Okay, so that's something that I'd like to see in the public meeting. Thank you.
So some more staff investigation and comments on those. Bill?
Yes, through Madam Mayor, Cindy, I would suspect in response to Victor's comment about a dry hydrant, this topography in here where this is located is pretty rough. So to actually put an access point in there, I would dare say that there's going to be a tremendous expense involved in going down over that particular site. I'm quite aware of what it was. So if the fire department was trying to access a dry hydrant especially in the wintertime, that may require a tremendous amount of maintenance for to actually be able to do that. But I look forward to the further discussion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Okay. Any further discussion? So this motion is to proceed with a public meeting where all these things can be discussed. All those in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. Okay. We have a motion for Road 38 shoulder restoration. Moved by Brent and seconded by Sherry, whereas tender PW 2021-06 was released on September the 9th, 2021 and closed on September 23rd, 2021, Road 38 shoulder restoration as described in the document. And whereas the Public Works Manager has reviewed the one bid submitted, now therefore be it resolved that Council award Cranes Construction Limited as the successful bidder in the amount of $48,200 excluding HST, and further that the Public Works Manager be authorized to issue a purchase order for the work. I don't believe Tyson is with us tonight, but
No,
are there
not.
any questions or comments that we need to find out from him later? Okay, pretty straightforward, I guess. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Okay, committee reports. Moved by Nikki and seconded by Bill that council received the approved minutes and terms of reference from the Central Frontenac Trail Revitalization Committee for information. Any discussion? Victor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a point of clarification. In their terms of reference, it states the chair of the committee shall be one of the Township of Central Frontenac's appointees, and the committee shall appoint a secretary. According to our procedure, is not the chair is supposed to be a member of council?
Yes, that's what they are in all our other committees. It's council member as the chair.
I think
So I
we
believe
met
that
it
I believe that Nikki is the chair currently.
Yes.
But I think just to make sure that we don't cross any lines here, in case somebody else, in case Nikki resigns, somebody else is put in, that it should be a member of council as to our usual procedure.
Yeah, that's correct. You are correct.
Okay. So we'll tweak that to say that the chair must be a member of council.
Council. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Right. Okay. Okay, all those in favor of the terms of reference as a friendly amendment to it? All those, okay, carried. Okay, we're moving right along here. I have a motion moved by Brent and seconded by Tom that council received the approved minutes from the Economic Development Committee meeting held July the 28th, 2021 for information. Any discussion or comments? All those in favor? Carried. And moved by Nikki and seconded by Cindy that council received the Quinte Conservation Authority approved minutes from its board meeting held June 17th, 2021 for information. Discussion, comments? All those in favor? Carried.
Madam Mayor, just a question
Yes.
here. Did we miss the Community Policing Advisory Committee minutes?
Nope, that's the one I thought that's the one she just did.
No, I don't have a motion.
Oh,
It's on the agenda.
It's on the agenda. So, and it's in the in our package. We did the trails, economic development, and then I think we skipped.
yes, we did skip that. Okay, well, we'll just do up a
Item
motion.
C. Item C.
I'll make one. Okay, so moved by Victor and seconded by Philip that council receive the minutes from the CPAC meeting held.
June
What's the
17th.
date?
Yeah.
June
17th.
17th
Yeah.
for information. Any questions or comments on the minutes and the information attached to the minutes? Okay, motion's carried. Or sorry, vote. Carried. I'm thinking I have to put a space in here for carried. All right. That was the office that messed up, Kathy. Not me.
Yes, no, that's right. And I even reviewed those motions and I still missed it. So sorry about that.
Okay. All right. Now we have Rita Valley Water Response Team, moved by Cindy and seconded by Philip, that council received the RVWRT summary notes from its meeting held September the 8th, 2021 for information. Discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Okay, so we are now at delegations. And our first delegation is Louise and Nikki from Rural Frontenac Community Services to talk about transportation services.
Thank you for having us.
Just moving Louise over now. Louise, if you can hear us, can you unmute? And there we go.
There she is.
Hi, Louise. And Nikki is assisting in the presentation.
Do you want to share your screen or do you want me to put the slides up on my screen?
If you could put the slides up, that would be great, please, and thank you.
Bear with me here. Okay, they're just coming up now. I'm going to share. Oh, I got to download it.
I heard you had a great annual general meeting, Louise, the other night.
Yes, we had a good evening. We're actually getting accustomed to being able to have fun on Zoom, but it was a well-attended meeting, and I can officially tell you that we are moving forward to change our name permanently to Rural Frontenac Community Services. So We did entertain it about 4 years ago and we weren't quite ready, so we used an operating name. And formally now the Northern Frontenac Community Services will be changed over to Rural Frontenac. So we're quite thrilled.
Good.
Excellent. Good to know.
Can everybody see the slides?
Yes.
Traditionally, this presentation is done at the county council level. This year, we thought we would change things up and go around and introduce transportation to each whole council. We've been to North Frontenac, we've been to Frontenac Islands, we were at South Frontenac last week, and tonight we're with you. Frontenac Transportation Services connects people of all ages to a wide variety of services, empowering them to live rural life till its fullest. Next slide, please. Transportation is essential to anyone living in a rural community. To a client, it means they get to go where they need to go and live where they want to live. Next slide. We provide a user-pay volunteer transportation service to residents 7 days a week throughout Frontenac County from the north down to the south in Wolf Island. Our services support seniors to age at home, ensure that rural residents without a car can get to medical appointments, hospital appointments, pick up groceries, attend events, visit people. We support children and youth to access the service as well. During COVID-19, we were able to step up and use our volunteer drivers to keep residents safe, to get them to essential medical appointments, as well as delivering takeout, groceries to keep them safe at home while they were isolating, prescriptions. We provided rides for vaccinations, and we supported the Meals on Wheels program here at Rural Frontenac and increased it from a 2-day-a-week service to a 3-day-a-week service with 4 routes throughout North and Central Frontenac. Over the past 12 months, we've served 257 unique clients. A unique client is basically like one client who might take several rides. Of the 257, 145 are seniors. We received almost 3,000 calls for rides. We dispatched over 8,000 rides, and we drove, amazingly enough, over 500,000 kilometers. In Central Frontenac, of these numbers, those numbers are for the whole county. In Central Frontenac, I can let you know that 133 of those unique clients were from Central. 41 of them were seniors. We did 3,100 rides. Actually, sorry, 6,200 rides for Central. And we had volunteer hours of almost 8,000. And we traveled 344,000 kilometers. We currently have 23 drivers. They've donated over 12,000 hours. And if we were to pay them minimum wage, because they are volunteers, so they only get reimbursed for their kilometers and escort fees and parking. But if we were to pay them minimum wage, we would have had to pay them over $178,000. Next slide, please. That's just a breakdown of the majority of where the destinations were. The majority are usually medical. Typically, they have been, as you can see from the breakdown. Next slide, please. Do people pay for rides? Well, yes, some do. People pay for the mileage of the ride. Over the year, we charged $233,000. Many clients pay for their own rides. So with seniors, some are subsidized and some do pay for their rides. They do not pay for what we call out kilometers, which is when the driver comes from their house to the client's house. The drivers are reimbursed for that mileage, but it is not charged to the client. They just pay for the kilometers that when they are in the car. Some of the transportation is paid by third party, and that's actually where we make a profit so that we can subsidize many people. As you can see, some of ours are the Limestone School Boards, Veteran Affairs, private healthcare, local businesses, Ontario Disability, and Ontario Works as well. Those are approximate costs of rides. As I said, we do subsidize rides to make it feasible for people in the community that don't have a car. We do have a ride share program that we were hoping ready to launch right before COVID hit, but due to the government provincial legislation and mandates right now, we cannot launch that program, but we are ready to go with it. Next slide, please. As you can see, Frontenac County gives us $48,000 a year, so that's 15% of our revenue. We were successful last year in receiving a grant from the Community Foundations program, which helped with all the deliveries. We didn't charge anybody for any of those deliveries for COVID, for groceries, vaccines, appointments, prescriptions, what have you. And 84% of our revenue comes from our third-party rides. Next slide, please. In 2019, a rural transportation table was formed through funding from the community foundations to investigate rural transportation in the rural areas. Many agencies took part in this. Next slide, please. The biggest thing that came out of the table was that the definition of public transit does not really work for the rural areas. And if it is, my only plug is if any of us around the table ever have an opportunity to put a plug into anybody at the provincial level or even federal level, changing the definition of public transit would be the biggest thing to do that would benefit our area, that we would be able to access more money and be able to help more residents get to places that they need to go. It's very narrow, it's very geared towards an urban area, but rural transit is needed in the rural area. So that's my little plug there. Next slide. Again, the table found that volunteer drivers are successful. So the model that we use here in Frontenac County works. It's been proven. Residents with mobility issues are served by most rural programs in the urban areas. They have like the access bus, but out here they're not. So that is a gap we're looking to fill. Sharing office spaces works. Of course, rural internet, broadband was a big issue that came out of the table as well, which they've been trying to help with the boosters that have been set up around the county. Most volunteer-driven rides are individually arranged. There's a lot of sharing with families, and the shortfall is funding. Next slide, please. As I said, they found identified some unmet needs. Seniors have options throughout the region. Cost is still a barrier. Families, youth, and children have less options, and there's a lack of service in Frontenac County. Adults with disabilities have options with ODSP to help with the cost. Next slide. As you can see, there's a quote from one of our volunteers about how rewarding it is to give back to the community, and that's why the majority of them do it. We couldn't have Frontenac Transportation without our volunteers. They're the biggest, best part of our service. They're the frontline workers that get people door to door where they need to go and help them access their needs. As you can see, we are a seamless transportation system for all of Frontenac County. We don't just serve seniors, we serve the whole population, and we're happy to do it. And thank you for having us today and listening to my presentation. And if you have any questions, please bring them forth.
Okay, thank you, Nikki. Good presentation. Any questions or comments from anyone? Bill, go ahead.
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor, to Nikki or to Louise, those people that we can't serve in regard to providing a ride because of disabilities they may or may not have or may have, what options are open to them for to actually be able to be provided with the service they require, for example, getting to a doctor?
So staff at FTS did some research. We worked with the county's accessibility committee, and we actually had some funding for a period of time. We offered to be the broker. So what we offered to do was, if you called us and you needed a wheelchair or you needed a lot of assistance, say, you were a stroke victim and you weren't really had good balance, our volunteers can't necessarily help you. So we identified taxi services. There's a program, I think in Napanee, Driving Miss Daisy, which supports people that have disabilities. And if they're close to Lanark, we can do Lanark transportation. So we don't have a program in the county that has accessible vehicles. Land O'Lakes has 2 vehicles through VON that they can share, but they're actually, in my time, and Nikki, correct me, but we actually have had very limited demand. Often it's being released from a hospital, and we sometimes identify who can give them the ride.
Thank you.
the very good thing about a volunteer driver is if just some assistance is required, the volunteer driver help folks in and out of cars and hold doors and put the walkers in the trunk and all that kind of thing. And, you know, that's so much help to folks.
Our volunteer drivers are pretty amazing. There was a gentleman in the south that needed to go to dialysis 3 times a week. And and unfortunately, due to the dialysis and his health, he started out with 2 fully functioning legs. By the end of the service, he was down to having neither leg. But we had a very good volunteer who was quite able to assist him. And as he first lost a foot and then a leg, our driver was able to get him in and out of the vehicle and get him to his dialysis 3 days a week. Eventually, by the end of his health, we were just not able to transfer him. He was strong enough to help transfer him himself. And that volunteer had that connection and stayed with him and helped as best he could until he just physically couldn't help him. And then it was thrown back, and I think an access bus was actually sent out in the end to help him at his end of his life to get to his appointments.
Excellent. Yeah, it's stories like that that you can't put a dollar value on. Yeah. Any other questions or comments? I have a motion. The motion's moved by Sherry and seconded by Brent that council receive the Frontenac Transportation Service presentation from Louise Moody and Nikki Gowdy on behalf of the rural Frontenac Community Services for information. And thank you both for all that you do. All those in favor? Motion's carried. And if anybody wants to be a volunteer driver, just contact Nikki.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, our next delegation is Ian Willens. Ian, are you with us?
Madam Mayor, I'm just going to move him over. It'll just take a moment to get him in the queue.
Okay.
Sorry, it's being fussy with me here. Oh, here he comes. Okay. So Mr. Willens, if you can unmute and see if we can hear you.
You're still muted, Ian.
Mr. Willens, if you can look at the bottom left-hand side of your screen and see if you see a mute button there and enable it.
There we go.
Can you hear me now?
Can you hear us now? Yes, we can.
Okay,
Go
sorry.
ahead. That's okay. We're all getting used to Zoom.
Well, it's a new phone. Anyway, I just want to make this simple. Kathy has already advised me about the Airbnb and what council's about looking into. And what I'm concerned about is one of the biggest factors. I know the majority of real estate agents are advertising that these cottages and buildings are to be a perfect situation for Airbnb. And as a taxpayer, I'm really taken back by that because I can't see any income that it will help the Central Frontenac's coffers for taxes. Like they come here and they use it and they use the roads and I just saw a report. I'm not accusing the Airbnb people, but some of the roads are being inundated with garbage being dumped because they probably don't know where to take the garbage to the dump because they're there. And a question I was going to ask Kathy, I was on a website and it was called Airbnb in Central Frontenac. And there's only showing 44 Airbnbs. But that information doesn't take in consideration the people who are renting their cottages as Airbnbs through their own Facebook page. The other thing is we have a character. I don't know if I should say his name, but he has built, and I told the building inspector about it, 2 10-by-10 structures on the island on the east side of the causeway of Charlotte Lake. And my understanding under the building code is that you're not allowed to use an accessory building 10-by-10 for human occupation. And he is charging $150 a day from people coming to his 10-by-10 shelters, let's call them. And there's nothing coming to the township. I hope you decide to tax them as a business, because that's what they're doing. And he's circumventing the building code by building these 10-by-10 shelters. And I think that's just wrong, because like I said, according to your building inspector, a 10-by-10 shelter or structure should only be used as an outbuilding for tools and things like that. Roughly, I did some research, and I didn't have a chance to write it down, but like I said, they show 44, but I bet you there's about 500 Airbnbs in Central Frontenac, and they're hard to find because, like I said, they're either going through their own Facebook page or they're not going through Airbnb. They're just advertising themselves. Like this individual has his own business, and he actually has, let me think, 7 to about 10 different buildings that he rents out as Airbnb. And I know the majority of them are in North Frontenac, but that's out of your jurisdiction, so that's fine.
One of the things that you need to know is that we are working on doing research on Airbnbs, and we'll be bringing forward a bylaw, and we're also in touch with North Frontenac, who are working on the same topic. So North and Central are on this. We do recognize it's creating problems. So all the information we can get, we're pulling together right now with the hopes of a bylaw soon to be coming forward.
That sounds good. Now, there's a model that they used in Ottawa for Airbnbs, and it sounds like it's pretty efficient, and it brings monies into the coffers for the Ottawa, the city of Ottawa. So I don't know if you've looked at that as an example or not, but anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Okay,
that's
we'll
great.
certainly get a copy of it. Yeah. Okay. Any questions or comments for Mr. Wellens? Okay. If not, thank you very much.
Oh, I got one more.
I have a motion. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I got one thing that I wanted to bring up as well, if I may, and I put
Sure.
that in my letter to Kathy too. I was talking to Councillor Bill McDonald about this. You have a bylaw about maintaining your property in a proper way, and he said basically the bylaw you have now, and Bill, tell me if I'm wrong, it was to stop people from collecting scrap metal like cars and piling them up, and then it just takes away from the other properties around the area. Now, I've got an individual that lives at 2727 Clarendon Road, and the place is an absolute dump. And Bill, I think Bill's gone by and taken a look at it. He's got, I'm thinking, 5 outbuildings, and I'm pretty sure he's using one of his 10-by-10 buildings as a residence for his guests. And again, I've talked to the building inspector, and I don't know if he was looking at it or what, but you've got to put more, I'm hoping you put more teeth into this property standards bylaw, because it's not working. Like I'll be honest, I was going to sell this 18 acres across the road from me. And the first thing that people asked me was, people don't live in that house, do they? And I said, yeah, they do. And they said, it's a dump. And then that kind of deterred them from purchasing the property. And I was selling it for probably half of what I could have got for it, but I just wanted to bring that up. So if you could look at that as well, look at that. I think it's called the property standards bylaw, because according to what Bill told me, it's just people collecting, what do you call it, wrecked cars and stuff, and then you save them until they send them for the price is right for scrap metal. But Bill,
That's certainly part of it.
yeah.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think Ian's referring to the fact that I indicated to them that we do not have a property standards bylaw, but that we have a safe properties bylaw.
Yeah.
And there's a considerable difference between the two of them. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay.
That's
Yes,
what
we do have some bylaw improvements.
Okay. That'd be lovely. Thank you very much for your time, and I don't want to keep you too long.
Okay, I have a motion, and the motion is moved by Bill and seconded by Tom, that council receive the presentation from Mr. Ian Willens for information. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, motion's carried. Thank you, and we will continue to look into these items for you and on
Thank
behalf
you.
of all of the residents.
Okay, thank you, and be safe and stay healthy.
Okay, thank you, and you too. All right, next we have communications. I have a motion moved by Philip and seconded by Cindy that council receive the following correspondence for information, and it is number 1 to number 8. Any discussion on any of the correspondence? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Carried. Okay. Moving right along here. We have a motion, a correspondence requiring action, moved by Bill and seconded by Victor. Whereas the public library offers access to information, whereas the public library supports personal growth, economic renewal, and quality of life, and whereas the Council for the Township of Central Frontenac recognizes that the Kingston Frontenac Public Library provides a vital service to our communities, therefore be it resolved that Council hereby proclaims the month of October to be Canadian Library Month 2021 and October 17th to the 23rd, 2021 to be Ontario Public Library Week, and encourages every person to use the public library this week and throughout the year. Discussion? All those in favor? Carried. All right. Now, reduction in the size of council. I have a motion moved by Tom and seconded by Victor, that we reduce the size of our current council from 9 members to 5, effective in our next municipal election to be held in the year 2022. And further, that staff be asked to bring back a report to council for our September 28th meeting as to options and whether to include public input and methodology for doing so in order to meet the necessary requirements under the Municipal Act. Discussion. Who wants to start? Brent?
Thank you, Madam
ahead,
Mayor. Thank you, Madam Mayor. What I was looking over the report. I know that it looks like there are up to 5 different options that we're looking at. But more importantly than that, I do have a problem with the idea that public input seems to be optional, for lack of a better phrase, because we're saying, you know, like maybe we can talk to the public and we're not necessarily bound by any kind of public discourse on this. I have a problem with that. We are talking about making significant changes, possibly. And I think that not involving the public is a mistake. My own view is when we're talking about making such a fundamental change to the composition of council, I would prefer that we put a question to the public, bearing in mind that there's only so many people that are actually tuned in right now watching this meeting. I think by my count, including members of council, there's about 15 people on the line. If we have a public meeting, there's going to be a limited number of people. In other jurisdictions, when these kind of questions come up, it's usually the course of action that you would have a referendum where people would be given a choice between status quo and another proposal, or possibly a variety of options. I would prefer that approach. I think that we are too small a group to make some kind of fundamental change on this. I've seen other townships have had discussions about this, namely North Frontenac, and there were a lot of strong opinions, both pro and con. From my own purpose, I don't have a specific preference one way or the other, but I do think that not involving the ratepayers and residents of this township is a fundamental mistake. If we trust the voters of Central Frontenac to name people to council every 4 years, we should also trust them with the decision to actually decide the composition and how they are represented. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Tom?
Thank you, Your Worship. What I did was I looked at some of the municipalities, our neighboring municipalities. And if you look at the composition of those municipalities, we're actually 400, and let me see, I have my thing here. We've got 400 and let's see, Central Frontenac, I got my note here. We have 506 members based on the 2016 census, and that is really a low number per councillor. Whereas in other municipalities, if I take the highs and lows, you've got in the 7 municipalities that I surveyed, you have 2,072 members on the high, and the low is 762. So if you want the average, it's 1228. So I really think that we have too many councillors for the number of constituents in our area. The other thing is, if you look at the amount of remuneration we get over a 4-year period, our municipality could in fact save up to $250,000 in savings by reducing the council from 9 to 5. So I really think councils should really take a serious look at this thing, because I really think we have too many councillors for the size of our population. And I really would support number 4 option as outlined in Kathy's report to council, which states in there that number 4 is 5 members of council. And I agree with, maybe we would need some public participation in this thing, but I'm suggesting here that the option there of maybe get an electronic meeting with some of the population and get some feedback. But I would say that council should decide tonight if they want to go ahead with it. And I fully think that you really need to get a lot of consideration that when then maybe get some public input later.
Victor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, I think what you read as the motion was the piece that was in the just the contents of the agenda, rather than the recommendation that was at the top of the report written by Kathy. And in that, in not only the background, but in that recommendation, it says we don't have to have public input, but the recommendation is that we do have public input. So I think that if we are going to move ahead, we do need to have this public input. And the idea of a referendum, that seems like an expensive, that's as expensive as holding an election. So that's a huge expense. Whereas if we have a public meeting and advertise it widely so that everybody knows that we're going to be having this meeting, then the people who actually have an interest will have their chance to have their voices heard. So I would support going forward and with having the public meeting. Thank you.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor. I think
Yes.
that for that first motion where Tom had moved it and Victor seconded it, it should have been voted on before you get into discussion. This was the notice of motion, and in the procedural bylaw, Tom had, he moved it. He has to get a seconder, which he has, before you can
Right.
start discussing it. And then the other motion is in regards to the public meeting and all the report.
Thank you, Kathy. Yes.
Madam
Okay.
Mayor, can I ask for a point of clarification on this?
Mhm.
Sure.
If that is the case,
Yes.
correct me if I'm wrong, then what we're essentially doing is making the change right here, right now, and then talking to the public about that. That is very problematic. In terms of a referendum, quite frankly, adding a ballot question when we're asking people to vote next year is, we can get that kind of determination. It's not going to add that much. And again, we are making a fundamental change and hoping that either the 15 people that are on this call right now, or the possibly 20 or 30 people that would attend a public meeting, if it's convenient to them, is a very, very small percentage of the population. We're dealing with thousands of people. I think that we owe it to the people of Central Frontenac to give them an opportunity to discuss how they're going to be represented. Personally, whether we have 5 people on council or 8 people on council is immaterial. It really is reflecting the public will. And I strongly suggest that we open ourselves up to the public as much as possible. We all serve at the pleasure of the public. Why not allow the public to decide this issue as well?
Brent, the way I read this, it says that staff be asked to bring back a report to council at our September 28th meeting as to options and whether or not to include public and methodology for doing so in order to meet the necessary requirements. So this isn't a final. This isn't a we're doing it. This is here's what we should do, and staff needs to bring back a report, and there needs to be public input if we decide that before anything is final. Is that right, Kathy?
That's correct.
Okay, so you're not voting on a final decision to do this?
No,
That's
that's fine. I accept the clarification. As
Okay.
My concern is public input foremost.
There's another
the
motion
be-all to end all.
There's another motion coming that will address that, I believe.
Mhm.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, any other comments on this motion?
No,
And Bill.
I agree. I think okay, sorry. Go ahead, Bill.
No, through you, Madam Mayor, I think what we need to do is to find out whether there's any interest either around the table or in the public. We have to take the first step, and that is just to introduce the subject to the public. And I think that's what this motion is doing. And as far as the discussion in regard to what we should be, that should happen after the next meeting.
When staff bring back a report.
That's correct.
Okay. Victor?
Yeah, Madam Mayor. So they're supposed to bring back the report on September 28th.
28th,
That's
which is
today.
today. That's correct.
So, and we do have the report in front of us. So just for clarification, the motion before us is regarding Tom's giving notice of motion. And what we are saying is, if we vote to approve it, we are saying, yes, we are prepared to look at the question. And that's
Correct.
all we're doing. We're prepared to look at the question.
Mhm.
Right.
That's correct.
So, would you like me to read this one more time?
Mhm.
Let me do that.
Yes, please.
Okay. That we reduce the size of our current council from 9 members to 5, effective in our next municipal election to be held the year 2022. And further, that staff be asked to bring back a report to council for our September 28th meeting as to options and whether to include public input and methodology for doing so in order to meet the necessary requirement under the Municipal Act. And then there's another motion coming forward with some more detail.
Correct.
Okay, all those in favor of this motion? Opposed? Motion's
I'm
carried.
opposed.
Oh, Cindy's opposed, okay. You need a hand signal over there, Cindy, on that phone.
Don't worry, I'll speak up.
Okay, That's good. All right, now here's the other motion. Moved by Victor and seconded by Tom. That council received the CAO clerk's administrative report entitled Council Composition for Information. And whereas section 217.1 of the Municipal Act, RSO 2001, chapter 25, authorizes a local municipality to change the composition of its council, provided there is a minimum of 5 members, one of whom shall be the head of council, brackets mayor, and elected by general vote. And whereas there is no legal requirement for council to hold an official public meeting in this manner, however, the CAO clerk is recommending that a public meeting be held to provide the electors an opportunity to ask any questions or make any suggestions prior to council's consideration of a bylaw. Now, therefore, be it resolved that council approve of the recommendation of the CAO clerk to hold a public meeting for the purpose of considering a reduction in the size of council to be implemented for the 2022 municipal election. And further, that council is considering the following composition options. And there's 2 blanks. So composition option blank, and chooses to hold a public meeting. A, in person, or B, electronically, and instructs the CAO clerk to provide notice of a public meeting to be held on a date that's blank. So which option do we want?
Your worship, number 4, I support option number 4, and I also support an electronic public meeting, because I think that would get out to most of the people in the municipality because of the COVID thing right now. So I support that, and I think it should be done at a convenient time to staff, somewhat time in the future. I don't have a date.
Okay, so we've got an option 4 and electronic as 1. Brent? Go ahead, Brent.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Without clarification as to what the mechanism for public input is, I'm not in favor of this motion. I still think that the widest possible participation of the public is necessary, and having a public meeting, in my view, does not rise to the level of consultation that we need for this type of change. I'm not against the change in principle, but I do think we need to involve more people in this township in this decision. And I don't think that a simple public meeting is going to cut it.
Madam Mayor?
But there is, yes, go ahead.
Madam Mayor, in my report, it does speak, because of the provincial and public health restrictions, as everyone knows, if we have an in-person public meeting, you have to do all the vaccination as well as all the protocols with cleaning. So that's why I had suggested electronic, but also council can also choose, which I have in here, is to ensure participation, and all the participants have an opportunity to provide input. We may not be able to attend the meeting, but we set a deadline, like we have, like with the official plans and all that, to receive all comments prior to council making a decision. So we could do it like a survey monkey on our website, anything for anybody to give council some input. If they choose as to what composition you're looking at, then I would prepare for council the public meeting information with all that information for people. It could be put on the website and give them a deadline for those that cannot make a meeting per se, sort of as to what Councillor Cameron is suggesting, that might be an option for the folks.
Yeah. If I may,
Philip,
Your Worship.
and then Tom.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Philip
go ahead,
first.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. One, what is the time frame that we have to have a decision made before the election? And 2, I agree with Councillor Cameron that the public consultation is important. It's going to change the makeup, potentially change the makeup of how we've been operating the township since its inception. And I'm worried about if we put in the limitation of council's looking at option 1 or 4 or whatever the options are. I think the important part is getting the public input to show them the options that are available and on the table, and get their input onto that as well. Not just say here's the option that council's looking at.
Okay,
And that's also an
Tom?
option you can. Mhm.
Okay, Tom?
I think the idea of Survey Monkey is good. I also think the public meeting's good, and I think to cover everybody, they could also mail in any comments by mail to the township office. So that would cover everyone. With regards to what you just said there, Councilor Smith, I think it'd be rather difficult to put in all the options because there are some of them in here. Under the Municipal Act, you have to have an odd number of council. So I think going from 9 to 5 is, I think, the best scenario at the moment, because if you go to it mentions in Kathy's report, a 6-member council, well, that's not possible. So I think there are problems if you go to an even number council, which I don't think we can do under the Municipal Act anyway. We're saying 9 to 5 is what we're saying right now.
I think what Philip is saying, what we should put out to folks is we're looking at changing our numbers. We're going from 9. Shall we go from 9 to 7 or to 9 to 5? At least give those options that we're looking at. And I think what I hear Tom saying is council should pick what we think our preference is and then have people comment on whether or not they think that would work as a starting place. I can see both sides of it. So maybe okay, Nikki, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. As you just said, I can see both sides of it, but I do like the option of a referendum as well. Maybe that should be on there. Like you have all these other 4 options, but maybe you'll get more. I agree. We'll get more opinions on a ballot than we will on a public meeting or a Survey Monkey. A lot of people don't look at the websites. They look at social media, and websites are really down at the bottom of the list. And I think we as a council shouldn't be making the decision. The people should be making this decision. They elected us here, and they should have the say. And so I agree with what Councillor Smith and what Councillor Cameron's saying. I don't think we should be picking an option. We should be putting all the options out there for them. And I would love to see option 5 with a referendum.
The only problem with a referendum or on the ballot is you're talking 5 years down the road to make a change.
Right.
Correct. It will not happen for the 2022 election. It would be the earliest you could do that is probably 2026. And then there certainly is a ratio, because you have to have 50% plus 1 to make it even viable.
Well, just to follow up, the other thing, Councillor Dewey had said a savings of $250,000, but really and truthfully, is that a number you want to put out there? Because if you're putting more work on 4 or 5 councillors, more committees, I believe that that the council will come forward and say they would like an increase in pay for that. So is putting out a savings of $250,000 is not really a good idea to be promoting that in the community when there might not be a savings. There could be, there might not be. Saying that it's not a good idea, in my opinion.
Bill, go ahead.
Yes, I've been quiet on this issue for a while now, and I want you to know that I was around when the last referendum in regard to this issue was actually held, and it was held during an election. And the requirements at that time was that you had to have a triple majority before you could actually change the composition of your council. Now, as I understand it, those rules of those games have changed, and now council can make a decision on their own. As far as Councillor Gowdy's comment in regard to needing more money if you only have 5, that might not be such a bad idea, because you might, if the monies were a little greater, you'd probably have a greater competition from the public in regard to hold the position of a councillor, because right now, with what we're actually paying our council members, we're not encouraging anybody to actually step up and take it, because the costs related to doing the position, you're actually, in many cases, losing money when you're working at this job. But I just wanted to mention to you, if you look at the Limestone School Board, we have 1 representative who covers Central Frontenac, North Frontenac, and Addington Highlands. If you look at a provincial level, the average number of people that one MPP represents is 100,000. And the same at the federal level, your MP represents approximately 100,000 people within their riding. So the fact that we have 9 people here, or if you compare the municipal council with the Board of Education, we have 9 here, 7 in North Frontenac, and I think there's 7 in Addington Highlands. So if you add those all up, that's 23 representatives. And if you add up all the budgets from those 3 townships, they don't come anywhere, not even up to half of what the Board of Education pays with 1 representative. So I can see that there are many advantages to reducing the size of council. I can also see the disadvantages, so that if 1 or 2 of us want to take a bit of a holiday or something happens, you can still conduct the business of the township because there's enough people still around the council table to do it. Whereas if you reduce to 5, the pressure is going to be much greater on the individuals to make sure that they actually attend every council meeting along with every committee meeting that they might be assigned to. I'm basically in favor of reducing the size of council, because I think whether we have 9 people around the table, or we have 5 people around the table, if we do our research, I believe we'll still come to the same conclusion in direction to staff in regard to most of the issues that come for decision to the council table. So I find it hard to believe that I might run again in this municipal world, because I'm getting fairly old. But I think from an efficiency perspective and the ability to pay people, a smaller council will certainly be just as effective as what we have today. So those are just my comments, and I look forward to the further discussion, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Okay. We have before us a motion that we need to fill in some blanks. And the first blank is what option we're going to consider, and whether it would be in person, electronically, or both, and when there would be a public meeting, and then we would have to vote on this motion. Is that right, Kathy?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is option 4. So I'm going to put that in.
That was the option for 5, yes.
Okay,
And
and
I'm also saying electronically at a date to be determined by staff. I don't know whether we can pick a date tonight.
well, I think
Can I ask
if-
a question? Yeah, when we talk electronically, are we talking about public meeting? Or, and again, I had heard the mention of Survey Monkey, some means by
both.
which, so I'm just wondering, are we going to specify that type of mode, or are we just saying public meeting?
I think we can say public meeting to be held electronically, and any electronic method that we can use to get to the public should be acceptable, the way I read the motion. It doesn't say Zoom, it doesn't say Survey Monkey, it doesn't say Facebook or website. It just says electronic ways of reaching the public. Am I stretching it? Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
Yeah. Madam Mayor, could I also suggest that we perhaps pay for an ad in the North Frontenac News that we are actually considering this option, and see what reaction we get from that? Because I think that's pretty well spread around and read by most of the local people.
I think Mr. Craig is on the call tonight, and if he doesn't write about this subject, I will be very surprised.
I agree.
And if he's not on the call, he missed out on a good discussion. Okay, so the what I'm hearing is the 4th. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So I think perhaps just for clarification, what we are calling for is a public meeting, but prior to the public meeting, we are asking for input, and that can be in any form. It could be in semaphore signals if necessary. Morse code, doesn't matter, but all of these will be sent into the township office, and they will be included as part of the public meeting, so everyone's voice is heard. And although I know, or I suspect that Craig is going to be writing about this, I would also recommend that we place the public meeting far enough ahead in the future so that we can advertise as a township. that there is going to be this public meeting, that we are also going to be having these other forms of input, so that we have a chance to collect as much information as possible before we make any kind of a decision.
Yes, and I think Kathy needs to answer Philip's question as to what is the deadline we would need to make a decision to affect next election.
December 31st. You have to pass a bylaw by December 31st of this year. So I
We
mean,
have from now till
Yes.
December meeting to decide.
for sure. So I mean, you could have, to give plenty of time, we could start advertising in October, not have the public meeting until even the second meeting in November of council if they wish, or a different date through that week to have the public meeting. Because you'd want it other than a council meeting and just have to pick when, you know, other than a
Yeah,
public
it needs-
meeting. So yeah, as to which
It
would
needs
be
to be a
best date.
special meeting.
Correct. So you could
And-
go in
and
between
if I
that third
could
week.
If I could just slightly alter this, because it says, and choose to hold a public meeting, and it says A, in person, or B, electronically. Maybe we should just say, choose to hold a public meeting and receive input from the
Yeah.
public.
Mhm.
Are people okay with that minor change?
Yeah.
Okay, and receive input.
Yeah,
Madam Mayor.
Madam Mayor.
Yes?
To whom are you saying yes?
You,
What's that?
Was that to Bill or was that to me?
Whoever wants to speak first can go ahead.
I'll quick, if you, Kathy's already, what did it say, ruled out the idea of having an in-person public meeting because of COVID. And so I'm not sure that A in there is actually should be considered at all. It just matters holding a public meeting in whatever format it might take.
Well, I've got a blank that I have to either circle it or click it or say yes to it. So it says electronic.
Well, I think you're.
Victor?
I would like to have that left in, because I believe that there should actually be a public meeting, not just input through email or Morse code or whatever. There should be a public meeting. It looks like we're probably going to have to do it electronically. And at that meeting, any kind of correspondence would be included and like read into the record or something like that. But we need to have a meeting where people are allowed to speak. And given the situation with COVID, that looks like it would have to be electronic, but we need to have
And
a meeting.
that is in there. It says, and chooses to hold a public meeting and to receive input from the public electronically, and to it just electronically and in writing.
Yes.
I would say that. I think that's good, Your Worship.
And
Because-
sorry, just for clarification, are we putting forth other options, or are we just putting forward the composition of 5? Are we putting together the other
Number-
options?
Option 4 is for 5 people, right, Tom?
That's correct, Your Worship.
Yes. So we're saying the council composition option 4, and choose to hold a public meeting and receive public input by electronically and in writing.
Right.
And instruct the clerk to provide notice of a public meeting to be held October.
I would say November, Madam Mayor.
Okay, November, not hunting season.
No. I would suggest possibly the third week in November in between your 2 council meetings.
What's it? Give me a date.
The Tuesday would be the 16th of November or Wednesday, the 17th, whichever is best for people.
The 17th is
Okay.
county council.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Philip?
Sorry, it's not about the date, but if we're putting an option in, does that mean we are solidifying that we're saying it's going to be a composition of 5? Or can that still be changed later down the road if we hear public input that they think this, I can't remember what option it was, but the 7 council member option with a deputy mayor elected at large
I think this just simply tells them the option that we're looking at. And then after all of the comments come in, we can change our mind to go to 7 or 11.
Right.
And Madam Mayor, as part of the public notice, so that Councillor Smith and certainly the rest of council, what I have seen in the other ones that have had their public notices, they do specify all those options. So that, and then it, you know, council is considering option 4, but here are other options as well.
I like
Okay,
that
so then-
alternative.
Yes,
I
because
think
that's,
it's good to give people options to
that's
comment
correct,
on.
because, yeah, because this was done back in, council had done this back in 2013. So we have some stuff to pull from that year as well. So, but yes, we can say council's considering this one option, but here's the other options as well.
Okay, good. That was my concern, is just wanting to know that the people would know and be aware of other alternatives for the composition.
For sure. Correct.
And I think similar to the background material we have, when you say 7, you explain how that 7 would work and how the 5 would work, so that
Correct.
people have that information.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so the motion reads, option 4, and to choose to hold a public meeting and receive public input electronically or in writing, and instruct the clerk to provide notice of a public meeting on November the 16th, 2021.
Is that a good date for everybody? That's a Tuesday.
That'd be in the
Okay.
evening, I assume.
Yes, it would. We would
Yeah.
maybe hold that one at 6 o'clock in the evening so we can hit the public.
Yes. Good idea. Let's say that, November 16th at 6 p.m. Okay. All those in favor of the motion? Opposed?
Opposed.
Motion's carried. All right. Good stuff. Now, is there there's no public meetings, no bylaw agreements. We did that. I think we're at closed session.
Yes.
Unless there's something else.
Are we going to
Any
stay on
giving-
here? Are we just going to stay on here, or are we going to go out and back in?
No, I
Cindy?
do have a separate meeting set up, so you'll leave this one and go into the separate meeting invite that I sent this afternoon.
Okay,
Okay, but before we do that, there's no giving of notice of motion.
No.
There's no new or other business. Okay.
No.
I have a motion moved by Brent and seconded by Nikki that council move into closed session to discuss number 1, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board pursuant to section 239(2)C, Interbrook School. 2, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, section 239(2)E. All those in favor? Carried. Okay. So now we leave and come back in. And then we'll come back here, Cindy, or?
We'll just stay on.
We'll just stay on that meeting and I'll start the live stream from there.
Okay, all right.
All right, so I'm going to end this meeting now.